All right, all right. Looking at these pictures, what do you think the word inverse means? Now, you're probably thinking it means the opposite, and that is true, but there is more to it. When we think about math, we have a very specific definition for an inverse. It is an operation that undoes another operation. So here's an example. If you have 5 apples and your friend gives you 2, you now have 7. Congratulations, you can pass kindergarten. If you want to do the inverse of that, what would have to happen is your friend needs to come and they need to take 2 apples from you. Then you would end up where you started, having 5 apples again. Now that might make you mad, but it would be a great example of having an inverse operation happen in real life. Now let me ask you, what do you think is the inverse of division? If you said multiplication, you are correct. And yes, you should be excited about that. Now, if we look back on how to calculate the percent increase and decrease, we had 2 steps, and I repeated them a million times. 1, you find the amount of change, which involves doing subtraction. And 2, you use the amount of change to find the percent. During that, you use division. Now what we're going to do is the inverse. We're going to start off with knowing the percent change, and knowing the original amount. And we're going to use that to find out what the new amount is after the percent change. So what we'll end up doing is we'll start off by multiplying, the opposite of division, and then we will do addition, the opposite of subtraction. You can also say that adding the negative version of a number is the inverse of adding the positive version. Or you can just say subtracting it. So here's our first problem of this kind. The grizzly bear population in Yellowstone National Park in 1970 was about 270. Over the next 35 years, it increased by about 115%. What was the population in 2005? Now our first step, like I said, is going to be the inverse of what we were doing before. We have to use the percent to find the amount of change. And to do that, we'll need to multiply. Then our second step will be adding the change to the original amount. So to do the first step, we'll need to multiply 270 by 115%, or 1.15 if you're thinking in decimals. Now I'll spare you the details of that calculation, but if you have trouble multiplying decimals or multiplying percents, you'll want to check out the video just on that. We end up with an answer of 310.5. Now we take that amount of change and we are going to add it to the original amount. Because we see the amount of bears increased, it's going to be a greater number than when we started. And that will be 270 plus 310.5. And again, if you struggle with the operation of addition here, you should check out the video on that. We end up with an answer of 580.5. But there is one issue with that. Can you actually have a half of a bear? Well, don't you worry, we're not going to do anything cruel. We're just going to round up to 581 because it's 0.5. And yes, you can rest easy and do your happy dance because we've just finished the problem and there will be no animal cruelty involved in this video.